little too often. Yeah. Every 2 weeks. That's how we do. I'm just a minion. When I was young, my daddy was killed, and ever since that day, I've been vengeance-filled. I strove to become a champion in the league, but when I got my judgment, they wanted nothing to do with me. Said a minion's place was spawning from the nexus and running down the lane until some champion wrecks us and followed their commands, but only in name. Someday I swore I'd beat them at their own game. Whose reasons are right? Why do we fight this fight? War is hell no matter how controlled. The little guys still get rolled. My daddy couldn't be the one to look me in the eye and say to me, son, not everyone can be a champion. You gotta have minions too. Spawn in the first wave and head out to middle lane. We're fighting for purple team. Can't see it's all in vain. Fight till our last breath. All of us filled with dread, marching to certain death. Slaughtered for the gold in our heads. Why do we have to fight them? What did they do, brother on brother? Is it just because they are blue? All for a nexus and a couple of towers, but all will come back in a couple of hours. Whose reasons are right? Why do we fight this fight? War is hell no matter how controlled. The little guys still get rolled, and who is gonna be the one to look me in the eye and say to me, son, not everyone can be a champion. How many times have you dove on a tower and the minions take the hits while you show off your power? How many team fights have you gotten aced? But they couldn't push cause our minions were all up in their face, killing their dudes. Don't mean to be rude, but it's true. You don't know what his minions are doing for you. If you're trying to survive, since it's you we protect, the least you could do for us is give us a little respect. Whose reasons are right? Why do we fight this fight? War is hell no matter how controlled. The little guys they still get a rule. Is gonna be the one to look my boy in his eye and say to him, son, not everyone can be a champion. You gotta have minions too. Yes, you do. Wave after wave after wave after wave after wave after wave of minions do. Oh, yes, you do.
Walking the void, you see many strange things. Kog'Maw, Malzahar, Cho'Gath. Mortals of Runeterra, take heed, lest you be devoured. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I spent many years in the void walking. The Self-Nightmares don't do a lot of talking. especially with the Nullsphere straight to their face. Silence is golden, now in this place. Now that I'm out, I'm trying to protect y'all. If they get their way, the natural select y'all. It's aimed to decide it's a full will purge. Now we know with nothing but a nerve. But Justin Rick walk, knew you can't slay me, it's really too bad.
Alright everybody, looks like we are looking to get the next game started. The picks and bans have already started to go down. The bans are coming down right now, so I will bring you that shortly. Here it is. The bans basically the same as last game right now. So we have Alistar and Lee Sin from TSM, and Cassiopeia and Urgot from JPak and Friends. Now a Rise ban from JPak and Friends coming down. Sorry, 1 second. We are having a little bit of technical difficulties, so I'm going to put the bumpers back up while these bans are going. Sorry about that, and I'll bring this back to you right up 1 second. Alright, sorry about that guys. I will bring it back to you right now. And here it is. The first pick is Nocturne for JPak and Friends. Kog'Maw was actually banned out as the final ban from TSM, as well as Rise from JPak and Friends. So a new jungler being picked up in all likelihood.
Yes, in all likelihood that Nocturne will go in the jungle, can play top lane, but is pretty standard in the jungle. We see that TSM really scared of the Kog'Maw pick. Of course, they picked it up last time, but didn't have first selection this game, so decided to ban him out. Instead, are picking up Janna and Ashe for their bottom lane. Of course, Ashe was banned last time. I thought that might just be kind of a trolley ban there, kind of like the Katarina one, which, you know, people were joking about in the game, kind of had the first pentakill in North America on Katarina. I'm not too certain how true that was or if that played into the decision to ban her. But regardless, we do see that Ashe pick up now, and the opposition is going to be Graves and Soraka.
Yep, and Graves offering a lot of burst damage, and I really like this Graves-Soraka combination. Soraka can give Graves that mana to help him use his spells.
Yeah, certainly. The other thing we see from Soraka is the ability to push down to the turret, force the opposition to push underneath their turret, which is exactly what Chaos and Xpecial did last game to JPak and Friends with Kog'Maw and that Soraka. Just continued pushing, made sure that they had to farm under the turret and miss a couple of last hits to the strength of the turret.
Yep, so looks like it might be a Mundo in the jungle once again, and Udyr being shown as well. Now, of course, Udyr was banned last time. Udyr was banned last time, right?
Yes, Udyr was banned. I believe he was banned by TSM.
Yep, so this time they're looking to pick up Udyr.
And that will almost certainly be, they do lock in Udyr top lane, probably played by Dyrus, and the odd one on Mundo again. Of course, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Mundo, really dominant force last game. We'll see if they carry that through to this game. The one thing that they kind of need to ensure that they will be dominant and have control of the opposition's jungler is a stronger AP carry than do JPak and Friends. And we see JPak and Friends picking up Kennen once again, and Vladimir this time.
Yep, and Galio being locked in almost instantly for TSM, so Reginald is gonna be playing Galio against either Kennen or Vladimir could go mid.
Yeah, certainly could. Both of them have great escape skills. It looks like Nothing here is taking heal and Ghost on Vladimir. Nothing here also generally the player who plays top for JPak and friends. Kenneth normally plays middle is taking Kennen, so it will likely be Kennen middle and Vladimir top.
Yep, so that should be an interesting matchup. It's interesting how the JPak and friends chose to go with Nocturne as their first pick.
It is, although it's not a pick that you can really counterpick. A jungler is fairly safe to pick high up in the draft, and I think they wanted to be more concerned about counterpicking at TSM than they were really worried about getting what they wanted. Of course, they're picking up Kennen for the second game in a row, but interestingly enough, it is going to be a different person playing that Kennen.
Yep, and actually I was switching at the last second to Cleanse, so going to go with a Cleanse Flash to go along with the Exhaust Flash on Soraka in the bot lane.
Yes, that will certainly help him remain a little bit safer. Of course, can cleanse out of that enchanted crystal arrow from Ashe. That is a big deal, and of course any other form of CC that might befall him, especially exhaust. You don't want your AD carry to be exhausted for any length of time because his damage is going to be severely hampered. So we certainly have two very strong matchups here. The one thing is I don't really consider Galio as much of a burst AP carry. Now he's very popular now. Alexic from Moscow 5 played him a lot, really championed him as the go-to AP middle. Him, Mordekaiser, and Ryze are really strong because they're all tanky AP carries essentially. So they do their burst damage, they do a lot of damage, but they also don't fall down instantly when they're focused.
Yep, and that cleanse is actually going to help Graves against the taunt ultimate from Reginald's Galio. So that is probably a good idea for the Graves there. So we're gonna have an interesting matchup down at bot. I think what we're gonna see is the Soraka Graves combination really trying to push lane, as you said, and trying to force Ashe, who isn't as good early game, to really have a lot of trouble farming up early in the game at least.
I do think the plan is to, cause a little bit of trouble, forcing Ashe to last hit under the turret. One thing is Janna especially is good at assisting her AD carry to last hit under the turret by virtue of granting that Eye of the Storm, that attack damage bonus shield. So, if they want to get that off the Ashe, they're either going to have to attack her or really push hard so that there's so many minions up against that turret that of course, that Eye of the Storm, which lasts about 5 seconds, will go down before Ashe is able to pick up all the kills. Of course, as a support, the other thing you can do, but you have to be very careful about it, is hit the minions before the turret hits them. That is, hit the ranged minions before the turret hits them, in which case your AD carry will then be able to one-hit them after the turret hits them. So a little bit of assistance there. It's hard to coordinate perfectly, but of course, Xpecial and Chaos, one of the top pairings in League of Legends in the world. So I'm sure they have that down pat, and we'll see how the last hitting goes down their bottom lane. I expect Chaos will, as basically always, be ahead or at least stand firm with Graves for the early game.
Yep, so we have a little bit of time left. Once again, I want to remind everybody about our sponsors, gaming.stackexchange.com. They are what made this tournament possible, so be sure to check them out. They are a great site for questions and answers that you might have about League of Legends, and also about other games, but we are interested in League of Legends here because this is a League of Legends tournament. So,
certainly.
Check that out. They also have a contest going that Sotir is going to run over the details of.
Right. If you put ggClassic in your user profile, just put it anywhere in there. They will find it. Don't be worried about that. And ask and answer questions. If you have the highest rated and most viewed question and answer, you are in the running for a solid-state drive and a 27-inch LCD TV monitor. Also, throughout this weekend, while the games are being streamed, if you ask questions and they receive views, you are eligible to win $25 RP cards. So, if there's a little bit of downtime in between the streams here today, certainly rush over there, ask a question, answer some questions, and you'll be in the running to win RP cards, as well as those two larger prizes that I previously stated, a solid-state drive and a 27-inch LCD TV monitor.
Yep. So the interesting thing about this match is that we'll see how Nocturne does in the jungle against Mundo, because Mundo was really able to take control of Nautilus's jungle, but in this game they decided to go with Nocturne, and really we'll see how the JPak and friends are able to react.
Yeah, I'm not certain. Did we see? I don't believe we saw a Nocturne for JPak and friends last night. We did see a Nocturne in one of the matches, and Nocturne had a really, really fast clear time. He does clear relatively fast, should be pretty safe from counter jungling. Also is more of a threat if he's caught on his own in the jungle because of his fear, because of his attack speed bonus, the fact that he can block one of those Mundo cleavers. Should be a little bit safer in his jungle and a little bit scarier for Mundo to invade.
Yep, especially taking some shuriken hits while putting that ward down, not really caring about the damage as he wants to get that vision. He's just going to go back and heal up before anything happens. So both teams just looking to protect their jungles, actually kind of in a symmetric formation, just protecting all entrances of the jungles at this point.
Right. And we saw the same thing last game, wherein, both teams were content to not invade at level 1, but TSM really wanted to get that ward down at race, so they have that there again. And so far, it looks like they might have the same setup. It looks like Mundo will be taking race to his red, and it looks like they might donate the blue buff to one of TSM's champions. Looks like they're going to steal the wolves first, and I'm not entirely certain that they're going to go to the blue buff, but it's certainly an option in what they did last game.
Yep, so it looks like Dire's helping out Odd One with these raids as the wolves are being taken by Chaos and Reginald. Now they are standing by the blue. It looks like they are again going to take this blue buff.
Right, and we've seen this gain more and more traction. A really great idea. Why not give your AP carry that blue buff to start off the game, especially if you have someone on your team like a Mundo, like a Lee Sin, who don't need that blue buff. Of course, everyone likes the experience that you gain from the blue buff. Everyone likes the gold that you get from it. But if you're Mundo or Lee Sin or Riven or any of those junglers, including Shyvana, that are resourceless or rather don't rely on mana, then you can certainly just donate that to your mid carry. He did miss out on a little bit of farm there, but overall, he actually is a little bit ahead of gold on that Kennen just by virtue of taking that big buff and those little minions and wolves.
Yep, so it looks like Mundo once again going in, gonna try to take these raids. The Nocturne had gone around to try to maybe go from some counter jungling or a ganking opportunity, so wasn't there in time. Now he's gonna have to give up these raids, and they're gonna run into each other. There's gonna be a fight breaking out. Both Kennen and Galio are coming in. A flash goes down and an ignite. We'll see if it is enough to kill the Odd One, and Kenneth does draw first blood and dies though. And now it looks like Onion Bagel is in a little bit of trouble. JPak has come down to help out, as does Graves, and now Reginald is running and falls to Onion Bagel, actually picking up that kill. And now Azulal is going to pull this red buff for Onion Bagel, as Onion Bagel is low, so that's going to allow him to take this red buff.
Right, and his smite should be back up now. It is. He does take that down. Of course, Chaos and Express are like, oh, well, we got some free farm down bottom lane. That is pretty good for them, but not really worth up giving those 2 kills and the first blood and all the assist gold to JPak and friends. So really what we saw there is a great job by JPak and friends kind of modifying their strategy, allowing them to defend their own jungle there and take advantage for it. Kennen a little bit stronger early game, and the one thing is Kennen almost survived there too. Had Soraka just been a second earlier, would have been able to land that heal on Kennen, and perhaps they would have been able to pick up those 2 kills without any death. But as we did mention, we might see Soraka and Graves pushed to the opposition's turret here, but instead we actually see Janna and Ashe. Of course, they got that little bit of free farm in the beginning there, but they were in fact being pushed all the way back to their turret, forced to farm underneath it. Did miss, I believe, 1 minion kill there.
Yep, and one important thing to note is that Galio lost that early blue buff that had been donated to him, so is not going to have that same early advantage that he had last game.
Right, and I believe that was Nocturne that picked that one up. So he has a nice refreshed blue buff, which certainly he's not going to complain about. Nocturne loves having blue buff running through the jungle just so he can spam his skills, throw down Dustbringer more often, even use, Unspeakable Horror, his E, which fears jungle creeps and champions alike. Very useful. So now they're going in after this Reginald.
Yep, and the stun going on and the fear, so they're going to try to go on him, but Mundo is there as well, doing a lot of damage to Kennick, and Kennick is going to have to get back. He doesn't have his lightning rush gosh, yeah, it just gets it back and is able to get away. So that is good for him. But Onion Bagel is also in trouble trying to pick up the Galio kill. But the auto actually dies as Kenneth has come back to help out. So that really turning it out in favor of JPak and friends, despite both of them falling really low.
It was really close, and now Nocturne coming in, going to try to land this Fear on Reginald. Almost gets it. Oh my goodness. Very close, but no cigar for JPak and friends. Trying to pick up that last kill. Kennen, meanwhile, running away with barely any life. Did get hit by a couple of those minions there. They nearly took him out. Luckily, they weren't purple caster minions. Blue caster minions, slightly less OP.
Wait, no. Are they? No, they are purple caster minions.
No, he was. Oh my goodness, how did he not die? That is crazy.
Well, we see Onion Bagel here clearing out some minions. He did go over to the raids and take a couple raids despite being really low, taking the advantage of the death of Mundo to really go in there and counter jungle without fear of retribution.
Right, and he has a 600 gold advantage already on Mundo, and that will just increase over time if things continue happening as I suspect it will. Nocturne actually going for a 2 Doran's Blade start, so that is kind of a more frequent thing. Of course, Doran's Blades weren't nerfed, whereas Wriggle's Lantern and Vampiric Scepters did take a little bit hit in this last patch, the Lulu patch, to their base values. Of course, Wriggle's Lantern did grant 15% lifesteal, Vampiric Scepter did grant 10, and that has been changed to 12 and 10 respectively. So pretty substantial nerfs, whereas Doran's Blade, which has always been very cost efficient, always granted that 3% lifesteal, still grants the same amount, and is therefore just a little bit stronger.
Yep, and we see Azulal and JPak pushing this lane now as we thought they would, getting this to their tower. Ash actually decided to go back and has an extra Doran's Blade as well as the boots, and with a couple health potions as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, as I was saying, it's hard to last hit under turret if you're Ashe, if you're someone that is forced to start with boots, but if you head back early and you pick up that Doran's Blade, then you can actually last hit those minions under the turret just with one hit after the turret hits those ranged minions, which is kind of the problem area. That being said, Graves for JPak and friends is heading back as well, is going to have the item advantage when he returns here, so that'll be a little bit scary for TSM, especially once they hit 6, and that burst damage from Graves is really immense. And Graves has a little bit of a CS lead here, but by the time he gets back into lane, Ashe will have retaken it, and so we'll restart the matchup here.
Looks like Onion Bagel was looking to go for a counter jumping opportunity, but barely misses Mundo finishing off this red, so he isn't going to be able to get in there. We see that he is just going to have to back off after putting that ward down.
Yeah, and it's interesting because now he's a really huge threat with Paranoia, his ultimate, to steal, to go in for those ganks. But, everyone on TSM is actually really tanky and really gank averse in the sense that they don't like ganks and they're really good at stopping them. Udyr, of course, is just, naturally very tanky. Galio, one of the tankiest AP middles. And Janna and Ashe are pretty content to farm at their tower here. And, of course, Janna has really good potential to stop ganks. Not quite level 6, but we'll probably hit that relatively soon here. And then, of course, can use Monsoon to really frustrate a lot of gank attempts.
Yep, and right now it looks like JPak and Riz has gotten this bottom turret down to below half health. So I don't know if they really want to take that tower early to maintain some map control, or if they're just getting it low for now.
Yeah, it is. It's tough to tell. Of course, we kind of expected that strategy, that push all the way to the tower. That is the one advantage, or the biggest advantage that Soraka gives you early in lane. You have all that mana, basically infinite mana and infinite life almost. So long as you don't get bursted down, then you're going to sustain really, really well in that bottom lane, and that's what they've been doing, and doing a lot of damage to that turret. Oh, some burst damage goes out with that buckshot from Graves, and he also has his passive, which grants him extra magic resist and armor, which is essential bottom lane. So he was able to take a couple hits there from Chaos and from Janna, and really not worry too much about it. And now Janna getting really low, should be really.
Meanwhile, over at middle, we see Onion Bagel and Odd One fighting in the jungle. But they both back off, so looked like Onion Bagel really wanted to get that Fear proc to try to get some help from Kennex as well to maybe get a stun in, but Mundo able to just run out of there.
And despite, dying early on there, I guess Kennen died at the same time, so it wasn't really a great advantage. Oh my goodness, the ultimate does come down from Kennen.
Yep, and the original is in a lot of trouble, has that ignite on him, falls, the exhaust goes down, but is far too late, and both ultimates being popped to help take down the Galio very quickly.
Right, I was saying Galio is very tanky, but just not quite tanky enough to survive there. Apparently his ultimate was popped almost instantaneously. I didn't see it take effect, of course. It will pop, either via that fear from Nocturne or the continuous stuns that are output by Kennen via his ultimate and, of course, all of his other spells. So yeah, again, a nice advantage here for JPak and friends. 1.4k in the lead, 4-1 in kills, and they're putting a lot of pressure on these turrets. Top, having quite a bit of damage done to it, and bottom lane as well. It does look like now TSM's pushed kind of back towards the center of the lane, but that's likely only because Soraka did go back, and Azul LOL doesn't want to really be involved in a 2-for-1 quite yet.
Yep, so now that Soraka is back, they will probably look to push this thing a little bit, getting some damage on X Special as he farms up. Now, looks like JPak and Friends has a slight lead, about almost 2k gold ahead, and they are up 4-1, so that's a pretty big turnaround from last game.
Right. The one thing is Reginald has been farming really well in middle. Of course, Galio gives you that opportunity, and now he's taking his own raised as well, so that'll certainly get you some extra numbers. That's basically, 4 minion kills every minute. Really helps your numbers stay up. It doesn't grant you a ton of gold because those little minions are, of course, only worth about 4 gold per, but it inflates your CS number, and that's sometimes demoralizing to the other team when they're like, wow, how did the middle suddenly get 250 minion kills at 20 minutes in? So that's kind of Skara-esque. And Reginald trying to steal the race there of the opposition as well. Does back out at the last second, but gonna get some damage on him.
Yep, looks like Vladimir has his Will of the Ancients. I thought they might go for a quick double will early on, but Kennen going for that needlessly large rod instead of getting that Will of the Ancients immediately.
Yeah, well, it's kind of one of those things. Hey, if you can... Oh my goodness, well, bottom, Soraka is going to go down here. Kind of missed how that began, but I can tell you just from experience, the Ash Arrow into Mundo running up from behind. One thing about Janna and Ash is they're a great gank assist lane, and I say that because Ash can of course initiate a fight with ECA, and Janna can slow people down with Zephyr, knock them up with Howling Gale. Is engaging a little bit again on that Graves, but Graves is pretty tanky on his own. If they don't have a third person, they might not really win out that battle too incredibly well in their favor, so it looks like they're just going to back up here. Graves also still does have his ultimate, so they have to be a little bit worried of the burst damage he can put out.
Yep, so it looks like despite that, the JPak and Friends is still ahead a little bit. Some damage going down on Dyrus over at top lane, as Nothing Here is trying to harass a bit. Nocturne is coming down, is spotted by TSM, so they know exactly where he is, but he's just going to put a ward down and not going to have a chance to do anything in the jungle.
Right, and also the Janna Clairvoyance went down at the same time, so he knew he was spotted, knew he was going to back out there. Reginald looked like he might want to go on the offensive, decides not to in the end. Up top, we do see Udyr outfarming Vlad very slightly, but it seems like Vladimir has been, in control of that lane, has been pushing it up the whole time. And in this tournament, we have seen Vladimir's really dominate top lane, beating some really good Olaf players and some Lee Sin players.
Yep, looks like both teams are looking to converge around blue buff, and they're going to catch this Galio right now, who was looking to try to get that blue buff donated to him, and get stunned after that fear, and is trying to get back, but is pretty tanky, so is able to get away. Now the odd one was working on the blue, but he has to back out, and the blue going to JPak and Friends.
Right, so we kind of see a role reversal from last game, wherein, of course, TSM had complete control of JPak and Friends jungle. Here it's quite the opposite. They do a lot of damage there. Even though they're CV, they're just going to take this dragon because they know they've done some damage to the odd one and did a lot of damage to Reginald.
Yep, and a little tornado goes up, but it's too late. That dragon does go down. It is going to come back up around a little bit before 20 minutes, so we'll see if they both decide to come around then.
Of course, yes. If you're out there, you're a jungler, you're a support, you want to time all those buffs. Dragon 6 minutes. All the neutral buffs, that is red buff, blue buff, are 5 minutes, and Baron is a 7-minute respawn.
Yep, so down at bottom, we actually saw the first kill at bottom lane, I believe, go down earlier. In the game before, Chaos did manage to get a kill, but both JPak and Azulal had gone 0-0-0. So they are finally getting to see some action in this game.
Right. A little bit aggressive, but not in the way you would think. Of course, they had the Mundo ult come down there, and now Soraka's helping push this lane with Starcoal. They're just going to let it push to the turret and just ensure that Chaos misses out on some of the farm there. Meanwhile, looks like top lane does go down. Vladimir was putting constant pressure on that, and Udyr was just not able to stop him. So that is kind of an interesting result there. Not completely unsurprised, as Vladimir's really hard for melee champions to deal with. A really strong top, because if you can't get to him, then he just does, infinite damage to you because he doesn't have those mana
over at
costs
mid, we see an Enchanted Crystal Arrow getting on Kenneth, and Kenneth dropping really low, but able to stay alive with his ultimate. Is going to fall to that Ignite, though, and now Unibigo came in with his ultimate, so he's going to try to pick up a kill to make up for it, as Reginald is very low, but it has to back off.
Oh, that was unfortunate. That final Dustbringer, of course, grants movement speed to Nocturne. If it lands on the target, it continues following the target, but it did just miss Galio, who used his what did he use? He used his Righteous Gust, which increases movement speed, makes him, of course, harder to hit, with those skill shots. And it looks like there is going to be a defense to this middle turret. Looks like JPak was kind of taking a page out of TSM's book. Hey, if you have the opportunity to push down a turret, you should. But they are forced back from that turret, are just going to allow it to remain as is. And Janna will head back down to bottom, where it looks like Graves and Ash are doing a little bit of dueling. Graves backs off, probably afraid that help for Ash is going to get there sooner, which it does. And now Graves is going to have to run back to his turn, because it is a 2v1. Soraka is top. Although, oh my goodness, do we see this happening? It looks like it could be an early Baron rush here. A little bit of, swapping up with it. Oh my goodness, Baron doing a lot of damage. Now, of course, Vladimir is going to be able to sustain through a lot of it because of that Will of Ancients. And Nocturne, yeah, I guess is going to tank it now, and it will go down. None of them will be casualties unless TSM, catches up here. That heal from Soraka being really useful, and they're not even zoning out that Graves bottom, so really no loss for them. They, of course, lost a couple minions middle and top, but Graves was able to continue to farm, and they picked up a Baron at 16 minutes in, so 1640. So, as, players get better and better over time, and that Baron becomes, an issue earlier and earlier, of course, it spawns at 15 minutes, and now they've taken it, just a minute and 30 seconds later. TSM, of course, wasn't expecting it. If they were, they would have defended it, but, yeah, no CV went down there, no ward, and a free Baron for JPak and friends.
We actually saw JPak and friends earlier in the tournament utilize the strategy in beating V8, so you really bring that back out to get another advantage over TSM in this game.
Yeah, and really, you have to be careful about that. Looks like Kennen is being a little aggressive against that Galio there. Now Soraka kind of just hanging out middle. Thinks, I don't know, perhaps she's just going to assist middle more than bottom now. But we will see what their plan going forward is, because they do have Baron, they do have an advantage. Bottom turret is almost down. Top turret is down. Middle turret does have, actually, middle turret doesn't have very much damage done to it. But once you have Baron, you do want to push, because you have all that regeneration. You do have a lot of extra stats gold-wise. So you do want to take advantage of it, but we do not know exactly how JPak is going to do it. In this instance, it looks like they're kind of pushing up middle here, so that might be their choice.
Yep, so it looks like, again, they are grouping middle. Vladimir is top, but he is going to be able to fight with Dyrus right now, and Dyrus does back off. Meanwhile, the rest of JPak and friends really just poking down. Reginald actually getting really low, and they're just going to push down and hopefully for them take down the turret.
Yeah, and with Reginald really low, it's very dangerous for him to stick around. And it looks like they'll be able to take this turret, because if he jumps in there and uses his ultimate, he might just die almost instantly. A lot of damage going down on that turret. Not only do they have the advantage, JPak and friends that is, not only do they have the Baron advantage here, but Graves is slightly ahead of Ash, not so much in farm. He is, 2 minion kills ahead in farm, but he has his Infinity Edge, while Ash has gone Zeal and Blood, and BF Sword rather. So a Baron buff advantage and that Infinity Edge advantage to kind of add on to the fact that he just has a better, middle game presence than does Ash. Of course, he brings a lot of utility, but not nearly as much damage as does that Grave early on.
Yep, Dyrus taking advantage of all 5 being mid for JPak and friends, taking down the turret. Now he's going to go to the next turret right here, actually, and is looking to take that down, taking some turret hits, though, so he's still working on that. But JPak and friends doesn't care. They want to take down this next turret in mid, because that is the shortest way to get to the enemy nexus.
Yeah, and certainly mid towers aren't generally favored over the side ones. It looks like Dyrus is going to have to come back. I guess JPak and friends kind of enforced their will, gave the impression that they're not going to stop, and they don't stop.
Yep, they actually go in, and a lot of damage going down on special, but he does not fall. Soraka actually taking down Mundo, and they are able to win this fight as well as taking down the turret. Now, the rest of TSM has to back off Reginald really low, so they are able to take this tower down as well, and now the inhibitor is free. The Enchanted Crystal are going down, but Azulol cleansing that immediately, and now they're going to take this inhibitor.
Yeah, I'm not certain why he really cleansed that. He wasn't in any danger there, so they do take the inhibitor. The cleanse, of course, was very quickly timed, and perhaps maybe kind of a quick twitch reaction. Oh my goodness, I'm stunned. I better cleanse out of it. But he wasn't in any danger. It was only Ashe there. Galio was so low he wasn't going to jump in there. So now he doesn't have that for a fair amount of time, which is unfortunate. But we also see JPak really kind of with the dominant presence here, pick up the blue buff. We're going to pick up this dragon and just increase their gold lead. It is 5,000, and Reginald is coming to this dragon, really showing face, and JPak decides to back away. A pretty good idea, and that is one thing. If someone takes Baron and then pushes down and does a lot of things, you have to figure out how do we come back from this? What can we do to counter their advantage here? And picking up a comeback dragon is one way to do it. Oh, the smite goes down, misses a little bit, but they do pick it up in the end. So the advantage is only 4k gold, but JPak and friends, still do have that Baron buff. Actually, no, it is just worn off, so they don't have it. We'll see what their next move is. It looks like TSM is going to push down bottom.
Yep,
and we see this sort of aggression quite frequently from TSM. They are pressing, despite the fact that they're a little bit down here, but they do have the numbers advantage. They know they have the numbers advantage, and they're going to get this turret basically free, and then they'll probably just back out here.
Yep, the power does fall as the minion finishes off as they back off. Over at mid, nothing here, and Dyrus are fighting a little bit, and it's almost like everything is shifted while the top laners go mid, and they're in their own world while the rest of the team is at bot.
Right, and it looks like, JPak and friends going to attempt to, press their advantage. Of course, that turret barely had any life. Could have possibly engaged there with a Nocturne ultimate. Decided not to quite yet. Vladimir and Udyr were going at it middle, and Vladimir was actually kind of losing, but wasn't really too concerned of actually dying at any point. Didn't mind getting up in the face of Udyr and taking a bear stat stun.
Actually, Galio coming in here with the flash, getting that ultimate off, and now that is going to be trouble for Onion Bagel, but he is able to get back. Kennen has already died, and the heal coming down from JPak to help his team stay alive, and the Graves was unable to cleanse out of that because his cleanse was on cooldown because he used it for the Enchanted Crystal Arrow.
Right, so that was a disadvantage. Of course, Kennen is the person that you really want to be able to disrupt that. I don't know if Soraka's silence was down or if Soraka was too far back to, really silence Galio out of his ultimate there, or what exactly happened. But, the end result is Kennen went down instantaneously, not able to use his ultimate. Of course, he does have his ultimate for the next fight. That is a bonus. And the other thing is, despite really great initiation for Reginald, and despite everything kind of going well for them into that initiation, they didn't really have the advantage coming out of that. They, of course, had 5 members on their team alive, but none of them were healthy enough to really defend that next turret. So JPak and friends get to take another turret down. Of course, that just really helps them against TSM, who's going to aggressively push back in turrets. So they have that middle inhibitor, and they have both bottom turrets down. So we'll see, maybe perhaps they'll go top next year.
Yep, Kennen is already top, using his abilities to push it, actually missing that Thundering Shuriken. But looks like they're going to take their own buffs first. Oh, well, they actually don't take that blue buff yet, but neither Vladimir nor Kennen really needs that blue buff, so they can give it to Nocturne. And they're actually grouping maybe around Baron. They did. Oh, there it goes again. Now the ward being cleared. So Kennen has to come up here, but the rest of JPak and friends are here and have it warded. Again, that ward being cleared.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Oh, they are going to rush this, which is a pretty decent strategy here. They're going to really force TSM to respond. TSM is coming in, but the arrow does come down. But this little, very close circle might be advantageous. Oh my goodness.
The ultimates from Vladimir and from Kennen doing so much work, but looks like Chaos is going to get really low, but gets back and is able to kite away Nocturne, who dies. So it was a 2-for-2 trade in that fight.
Yes, it was a 2-for-2 trade. JPak is clicking on top lane. Of course, once again, they come out of the fight a little bit more healthy, and they have Soraka to sustain them, who is still alive. One interesting thing is, right before that fight, Kennen went back because he picked up Mercury Treads, probably in hopes of getting out of the Vladimir ultimate, or the Galio ultimate, obviously, a little bit earlier. Not really a big bonus, and JPak and friends, although they were pinging on the turret, and they may go forward for it, they do have to worry about a counter Baron here. That being said, Dyrus and Chaos on Ashe also not going back, so they're not going to be entirely healthy for the next fight either. Certainly gives them a decent sized advantage. And once they see Dyrus down there, they see Dyrus doesn't have teleport all the way bottom. They are pinging on that Baron, and can likely go for it. Certainly pressure it, and Dyrus is going to be a long way from top, because of course he now has to go back from bottom, is teleporting now, and then we'll eventually get there. But of course JPak and friends has, momentary advantage here. They are going to start this Baron, and if they force TSM to engage, before Dyrus gets there, that would certainly be a big advantage, and they're just poking him out, putting down a lot of wards, really just trying to distract JPak and friends before Dyrus gets there, because Dyrus is a really long way away.
Yeah, but it looks like they're going to engage in the fight. Now, nothing here, getting really low. The Baron does go down, and the TSM actually took that Baron, but the odd one goes down too as well. Now they're chasing him despite taking the Baron because it was a 5v4 fight. Reginald is in a lot of trouble with fighting with nothing here, and he has to back off. But looks like there is going to be no more. Oh, no, actually, Chaos taking down Vladimir, who was caught between the two groups of TSM. JPak getting back right now, is fervently walking away, and might be able to get back. No, gets stunned after the slow, using that heal to help himself stay alive, and the tower dive from Dyrus picks him off.
Right, and I don't know about that. I thought Kenneth could get away. He did just get Shirelli reveried by that Soraka. Probably could have ran with Soraka. Was, of course, afraid of the Galio, but I don't think he would have died. But instead he ran into that bear stance, that little stun from Udyr, took some damage from Ashe, and really, that fight, which, looked like it was going to go so favorably for JPak because Dyrus wasn't even there, turned around because they lost that Baron, because they took quite a bit of damage from the Baron in the meantime as well.
And that was like a really delayed fight. They didn't engage TSM until the Baron had essentially died, and it didn't even get that Baron, so it didn't work out exactly as they would want.
Yeah, and the other thing, basically no one's ultimate was up for that fight, so it's kind of an unusual fight where, you're engaging, but both teams kind of have, pretty good AoE presence. I say no ultimates were up. Ashe's arrow was up, and it was, a very, potent arrow, but, for example, Galio's ultimate wasn't up, Kennen's ultimate wasn't up, Vladimir's ultimate wasn't up, and I don't know if Paranoia was up or not. Certainly it wasn't used. So certainly that's a reason why the team fight kind of turned out as it did, a little bit unusual. I think that goes in the favor of TSM when all the ultimates are down, because Kennen's ultimate and Vladimir's ultimate are just really huge for those team fights.
And so it looks like not much pushing going on from TSM because they have to at first defend their base and take care of these super minions that are coming up. But we'll see what they do with this Baron buff after they are able to push down some lanes a little bit.
And one thing we see here, Dyrus is an absolute beast at this point, because he got to, because he pushed those lanes where, it wasn't always wise, but we saw him pushing bottom, and it really put his team at threat of losing that Baron. Luckily, the steal went in, and they did get Baron, but, he put his team a man down. But he's been farming the lanes kind of alone, and he is up to 262 farm, which is, 40 above anyone else in the game, has Frozen Heart, Randuin's Omen, Wit's End, and Negatron Cloak, so he is just incredibly, incredibly tanky.
Yep, so looks like both teams saw each other and are getting back to defend. Actually, TSM coming down to defend the spot lane, while JPak and friends going over to defend mid. So it's a little bit of a change to see trying to figure out which lane the other team is at. But we'll see how long the Baron buff is up. There isn't much time on it left, so TSM really has to act now if they want to take advantage of this Baron buff.
Right, and they don't have the best poke team. Galio has some pretty good poke. Of course, Volley is kind of legendary in its use as a poking tool. But on the other hand, there is Soraka there to heal all of that damage. Volley isn't incredibly damaging. It does look like they are going to try to push this down. They have 4 members with Baron buff, which is huge, and I always feel like that is a bigger advantage, and then especially an outer turret. So we're seeing JPak friends really poking down here, but they are not. Oh, I guess they are going to kind of defend this turret. It is down to about a third life now. I think they'll probably give it up in a second here, but in the meantime, they are poking down TSM to the best of their ability.
Yep, and the Super Minion actually also helped with that. So, but it looks like the tower is going to fall. Chaos taking that down, and now here they come back to the inner turret.
And they're going to pick a point here where they're going to make their stand, and I think it might be on this turret. Of course, you know, the turret will be in their advantage. The Baron buff did just wear off, so it's no longer in TSM's advantage. So certainly I think JPak and friends are like, oh, well, if they're going to fight on our turret, we have two really great AoE ultimates. We have Nocturne to go in there, you know, throw down his paranoia and say darkness and really confuse all of the opposing team. That'll be a big enough advantage for us. And actually, now they're kind of pushing out. They actually might go on the offensive. No, it looks like they're, you know, pretty content to back out, but the teams are posturing like they're both willing to fight here.
Yep, and a little bit of poke coming down from Reginald, trying to do something with that. They're both, yeah, like as you said, trying to look for an advantageous time to fight, not really wanting to go in just yet, but looking for the right opportunity to go in and catch somebody.
Right, and at this point it's 8-8, so of course there are more kills than there were last game, but that is still, you know, a relatively few amount of kills in the game. The gold is really close, but TSM has taken the advantage essentially for the first time this game when they took that tower. They are now about 600 gold up. Oh, and the ECA does come down.
And a counter initiate with the cannon and the Vlad ultimate. Now looks like Dyrus is in the middle of them, trying to do a lot of damage, but Reginald has to get back, is dropping very low with that ignite, and does fall. Dyrus actually dropping really low from being in the middle of the fight, does fall, and it looks like this fight is going JPak and Friends' direction. It does after the fight. They are up 2-0, and the rest of TSM has to back off. Looks like X Special got really low in that fight as well, and JPak is going to push down mid and maybe take this in. Oh no, the inhibitor is already down. I don't know when this inhibitor is.
Respawn really soon.
Yeah, so I don't know
when they're counting on it respawning. You know, basically right away. They're putting pressure on it, making sure Chaos doesn't go back. And there we go. Right as soon as they get there, it does respawn. Chaos doing some poke damage. Really was able to do a lot of damage in that team fight, but just not enough. Meanwhile, Graves was kind of stuck back there because we saw this. We saw this last night with CLG. I believe they were also running an Udyr Mundo composition where the AD carry really couldn't focus anyone but Udyr and Mundo. And of course, they are incredibly hard to take down. That being said, they did kill Udyr there. Very impressive amount of damage coming out from that Graves, killing him through Frozen Heart and Randuin's Omen, which are arguably, almost inarguably, the two best, you know, attack damage defensive items to go against the AD carry. So, you know, despite that huge amount of farm on Udyr, despite, you know, all that armor and Randuin's Omen, which slows, you know, the opposition's attack speed if they hit the Udyr, he was still taken down in that fight, and taken down quick enough where that, you know, basically JPak was able to take advantage and then focus on these squishier targets.
Yep, so that team fight put the gold back to basically exactly
even. 32 minutes in, 32 minutes, 33 seconds, and the gold is exactly even. Now, of course, now that we're saying that, it has gone, you know, waved a little bit, a couple hundred the other way, but now Baron is up, so we're going to see the next fight, and Galio is down there fighting blue up, and we saw this last night, CLG versus Epic. CLG actually took a Baron because Hotshot GG kind of, you know, postured like he was going towards blue buff, so we had two people from Epic go and secure blue buff, and meanwhile CLG just took Baron. Here we have three people on blue buff. Of course, they're helping out Reginald because Galio doesn't particularly take it out very fast on his own.
Yep, but, so they're actually a little bit lagging behind, and X Special was back, so it looks like JPak might go in to get this Baron buff, but they know that there are no wards for TSM, so they might, but the ward does, sorry, the CV does see them, so it looked like they might have wanted to stand in that bush, bait them into coming in there and jump on them, but they do back off. Now it looks like neither team is really looking to stand around a Baron, instead looking for a fight.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. If I was JPak in this instance, I would kind of force that Baron fight. Nothing here actually has potions still up, a Might Shroom and Sagely Spore still up, and I think we've seen in the last couple of team fights, he has been a person doing a ton of damage, but actually hasn't really gotten low, whereas everyone else gets low. Vladimir sustaining himself through all these battles, now has that Void Staff as well, is going to do a ton of damage, so they are going to force this Baron. Do think they have an advantage. They do have an advantage. Reginald's all the way at blue. It'll take him a while to get there. This Baron will go down before he gets there.
Oh, and
there's a lot of harassment, and there is. Nocturne jumps in.
Yep, and the arrow actually was to initiate, and the Janna ult pushing cannon away, and now there's a lot of damage going down, but nobody has fallen quite yet. Dire is dropping very low as nothing here is going to fall, and the Chaos picking off Soraka, and this fight the opposite of last fight, as the JPak and friends has to back off with 2 of their members dead.
Yeah, and what we saw there is basically Chaos was just able to, poke at the opposing team unmolested. Of course, Nocturne tried to jump on her, but, with Janna, being able to monsoon the Kennen and the Nocturne away, shield that Ashe, really just a lot of damage coming out from that Ashe, able to pick up the opposing team. And of course, Kenneth on Vladimir has been doing a great job in the previous team fights, like really staying alive, really doing a ton of damage. That time, he kind of stayed in the middle of the team fight, hoping to zone out everyone else, but he just died a little bit too fast for his team to take advantage.
Yep, Kenneth is building towards that Zhonya's Hourglass with the Needless Large Rod and the Chain Vest, so is going to have that up fairly soon. Just has to pay up the combine cost for that to get that. But yeah, the team fight actually also allowed TSM to take that Baron for free.
Yeah, I actually don't see that needlessly large rod on Vladimir. It's kind of hard because they're actually... Oh, were you saying it's on Kennen?
Yeah, on Kennen.
They're building essentially the same thing. Kennen doesn't have a Void Staff. He's going to get that Zhonya's a little bit earlier. With Vladimir, I especially feel that the Zhonya's is really annoying. It's probably more effective on Kennen because he can simply, ultimate and then use his Zhonya's, and that'll not allow essentially Janna to monsoon him away. But as Vladimir, of course, he has his Sanguine Pool, commonly referred to as Troll Pool, which makes him untargetable for about 2 seconds. But if you add that on to Zhonya's, then he can really be in the middle of your team, and you really want to focus him down. But at the same time, at any point, he goes untargetable for multiple seconds at a time. It's just really, really unfortunate and really frustrating.
Yep, so I am waiting to see if TSM is going to try to push something with this Baron buff right now. They had the Baron buff last time as well, but weren't able to use it effectively. They just pushed out maybe 1 turret, and that was it, as they had to defend from the super minions. Right now, the JPak and friends has a 7-3 lead in turrets. Only the outer turrets are down, so they are going to be able to defend a little bit better.
Yeah, and what we do see is, that, of course, that pressure from the mid inhibitor being down did kind of frustrate TSM's initial attempt at going forward, but now they're all going to group up. And I think what we see is, especially these veteran pro teams, CLG and TSM in particular, they're not really worried about rushing to get the game over. They make sure that they have the advantage before they engage in these fights, before they push down these turrets. Even if they have Baron buff, they don't want to rush it and perhaps throw the game, and they're just, really great at, sustaining their pushes once they get them going.
Yep, and a lot of poke going down, getting that turret to about half health. Kennen does have that Zhonya's Hourglass now, so we could see it into effect. Galio also has Zhonya's Hourglass, so we could see that coming into effect in the next fight. But it looks like TSM is going to take that tower, and the rest of JPak and friends just falls back to this inhibitor turret and is going to defend here.
Yeah, we can see this popping up, the numbers over Dyrus' head. That is the regeneration from Aranduin's Omen, Force of Nature, and Baron buff. It is pretty incredible. Oh my goodness, so much damage on that Vlad.
Yep, and they aren't really fighting yet because, they're just trying to poke down as Dyrus just comes in and does damage, not really caring about anything happening because he has so much health regeneration at this point. And along with the shields as well, with his Turtle Stance and the Janna shields, helping him keep up his health despite going in there and basically taking hits to the face all over the place.
Right, and this turret is going to go down soon unless JPak does something, kind of desperate here. I don't know if they really want to do this fight or if they'll perhaps just give up the inhibitor. Right now, they are posturing like they are going to, fight here till the end. No damage done on the turret that go around, but we will see. Of course, up top, JPak and friends minions are pushing down that top turret, so that will probably go down if nothing changes here. So they might just exchange turrets here. Of course, if TSM gets this turret, there's nothing really to stop them from taking that inhibitor. With that Baron buff, they're just a little bit stronger.
Yep, looked like there was going to be a fight there. Getting the last couple hits to finish off that turret, and that turret is gone now. The TSM is going to back off, maybe look to take buffs, seeing that red buff now, and push down another turret.
And like I said, the push on top turret has gone a little bit slower than I expected. Those minions from TSM helping them out a little bit, but, if TSM doesn't get back, it looks like it'll go down. They have that cannon minion. Oh, it's going to be close. It's going to be really close. I'm watching minions slowly take down turrets. Not quite as interesting as other things going around on the map, but probably pretty important. So it looks like it is going to be protected by Dyrus, but there is only 200 health remaining on that, so that is, 1 or 2 hits from Graves there. So, while TSM did a really good job pushing down that turret, taking their advantage, they didn't get that inhibitor, and the end result is the minions from JPak did almost as much as work as TSM did throughout that whole fight.
Yep, and actually TSM picking up that dragon to push their lead to 7k gold. So earlier we saw that they were even in gold, but it's quickly turned to a decent lead for TSM, although at this point in the game, 7k gold isn't as much as we might see earlier.
Right, and it was all about that Baron steal, I feel. I mean, they were actually a couple thousand gold behind. They were really behind earlier in this game. We were very impressed by JPak and friends, able to protect their jungler against that Mundo, actually pick up a lot of kills because of his attempted counter-jungling measures. But TSM was able to pull it back in large part just because they were able to steal that Baron, even though they were a man down. And, that's an important thing. Even though you're down in a match, even though you might not have everyone at the Baron, you really want to contest it. Try to steal it, try to do something, because if the other team has the lead and they take the Baron, then it's really just a really bad sign that is very hard to come back from. Whereas, stealing it, you kind of have a 50-50 chance if your jungler is equal level and, can get into the Baron pool there.
Yep, looks like TSM is trying to take this inhibitor down as it is open. They get some damage on it, but isn't able to take it down just yet. A fight might break out as this inhibitor is being taken very low, and it does, going in with the Paranoia and with the Cannon ultimate. The Janna ultimate comes a little bit later, so pushing Onion Mega way back, and is able to take him down. Nothing here, falls very low, and is going to get a lot of heals, but also falls.
Yeah, and what we saw there is Graves had really no choice but to focus on that Udyr, and that Udyr is just incredibly tanky, and the one real big difference in builds between Chaos and Azul LOL is Graves does not yet have that Last Whisper, which is really essential. Like, Chaos has a Last Whisper, and no one has a ton of armor for JPak and friends, whereas Udyr and Mundo do have tons of armor, and Graves just does not have the Last Whisper to puncture through that.
Yep, so TSM taking advantage of winning that fight to go over and take another inhibitor, and they're really taking control of this game now. They have 2 inhibitors. They are going to move around the Baron buff, which is probably going to come up shortly, and they are going to probably take this as they have the advantage right now.
Yeah, and they're going to be able to take it really quickly. JPak and friends can actually even engage. They could probably rush out there because the super minions haven't made their way to their base yet, but they are not going to challenge it. I'm sure they have the timer on there, but they're like, oh man, our inhibitors are down. We would be really at risk of losing some of our base turrets if we went out there. So they do give up the Baron buff. Really unfortunate for them. Kind of puts them in dire straits here. But Graves, 1-0-6, surprisingly hasn't died and does have that Last Whisper now. Maybe that will change the tides of this upcoming battle.
Yep, so as you said, he does have that Last Whisper. Should be able to do a lot more damage to a very tanky team on TSM.
Yeah, and of course, really tanky, really strong Udyr, just ridiculously strong. Frozen Heart, Randuin's Omen, Force of Nature, Merc Tread, Wit's End, and Fade. So all of his items are somewhat geared defensively. Of course, Wit's End is a good offensive item, but grants significant amounts of defense too through those through the magic resistance and the procs that you gain of magic resistance. And he is just a beast. It'll be interesting to see if that Last Whisper really allows Graves to take him down, because in last battle, Graves spent a ton of time and only took Udyr down basically to half-life.
Yep, so it looks like TSM is moving towards bottom lane to push that, and Dyrus is coming down, as is Chaos and Xpecial, so we'll see them push down this bottom lane. JPak and friends is staying back so that they can defend. They see it now, so they are going towards the bottom lane. Vladimir, meanwhile, is clearing top. And they just are going to give up this turret for free, choosing to defend at this bottom turret, but Vladimir isn't there, so we're going to have to see if TSM is going to choose to dive here. Dyrus coming in and putting some more damage on that tower, not really caring about any poke damage put down on him. They are able to take it, and the inhibitor, so now there are going to be 3 inhibitors down.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly unfortunate for JPak and friends not to challenge that, but they don't really have an option either. Wow, and Ash is doing a ton of damage to Vladimir again. Of course, Vladimir doesn't have that much armor. Does have an incredible amount of sustain. Is basically healing, 250 every Q, or more than that. But Dyrus now just tanking Raves and Kennen, doesn't really have any issue with it. Is going to heal back up as he heals so quickly with all those items I mentioned and that Baron buff. Just gonna go back forward, tank that turret some more. Nothing can be done to that bear.
Yep, and the Vladimir ultimate going down to maybe initiate a fight. The Ash Arrow comes down, but a great Reginald ultimate is going to come down, and the Kennen ultimate comes down, but a Janna ultimate pushes him away and does very little. So now the rest of JPak and friends has to fall back, which they do, and it looks like TSM is going to take this final turret and win this game.
GGs do go down. It looks like Ash will pick up the kill on Graves, doing 713 damage there. Kennen also getting poked down, but Zonia's at the last second, so he will not fall. Good game. Really was a very impressive play by JPak in the beginning, but then TSM came, turned it around, stole that Baron, and just, imposed their will. Really strong with that. Udyr as a front line could just not be pushed out of those team fights.
Yeah, that Udyr was very impressive. He has 351 CS at the end of the game. So really building up those items, getting the Frozen Heart, Ranvis Omen, and Force